English Step by Step, Past Perfect Continuous, Step 3. In this step, I'm going to explain and talk through and give you the answers to the practice exercises in the previous video, which is the Step 2 video. 2 practice exercises are on that video. And before that, the Step 1 video gives you the explanations and examples of the form and the meaning of past perfect continuous tense. So make sure you've watched the Step 1 and Step 2 videos before you listen to this video and before you watch me explaining the answers. Click like if you'd like to see more videos like this. Click subscribe if you'd like to see my other series of lessons, and you can request a lesson in the comments below. So let's look at the answers to practice exercise 1. Number 1. The room was a mess because there's something a party all night. Now, the only verb I can see that fits is have. So we need to change that into past perfect continuous, which would be they had been and then having. And remember, you drop the E to make the present participle. Now the next one has 2 parts. Second part, so he felt a bit weak. So what is the best verb? I think the one we can use is exercise as a verb. And it's negative. We can see the negative indication on the left. So he hadn't is the negative of the auxiliary verb. Been doesn't change. And then exercising. He hadn't been exercising, so he felt a bit weak. And again, we drop the E to make the present participle. Number 3 is a question. So we can use the auxiliary verb had in the inversion. So before you quit. Now the verb quit leads us to the verb which is smoke. So how long had you been and then smoking? And again, we drop the E to make the present participle smoking. How long had you been smoking before you quit? Number 4 is also an affirmative sentence. And we can see that the object of the sentence is TV. So the only logical verb is watch. So had been and then watching. They were surprised to discover that they had been watching TV for 5 hours. So the next one is negative. So it's then about a party. So if we're talking about a party, the best verb is enjoy. And it's negative, so it's hadn't been. And then enjoy becomes enjoying. So the sentence becomes, she hadn't been enjoying herself at the party, but then she met Bill. Now the next one is a question, so we can immediately put in had, and we can put in been. Now it's about a picnic, so I think we can imagine the situation involved walking. So let's use the verb walk. So in this case, how long had you been? And then we can say walking when you stopped for a picnic. How long had you been walking when you stopped for a picnic? Now the next one is affirmative, so we can put in had been. And then she was broke. Why was she broke? Well, I think we can see that the best verb is waste. She had been wasting. You can waste money. So again, we drop the E to make the present participle wasting. She had been wasting all her money. She was broke because she had been wasting all her money. The next one is about alcohol. So I think the best verb obviously is drink. So let's use that as the verb. And it's negative. So we need the negative auxiliary verb hadn't. Hadn't been and then drinking. They hadn't been drinking alcohol, So they were sober. Now the next one is a question. So we need had. And then we need the other auxiliary verb, which is been. Hadn't been. And then I think the best verb would be had he been eat. Let's use eat. Had he been eating too much? Had he been eating too much before he became ill? So those are all the past perfect continuous verbs for practice exercise 1. So now let's look at practice exercise 2. Number 1. The room was a mess because the children, well, if it's children, then the best verb is, of course, play. So the children had been playing. The next one is negative. So we're talking about somebody who was broke. So in this case, the best verb is save, because if you don't save your money, sometimes you can be broke. So let's make it negative. Hadn't. He hadn't been saving his money, so he was broke. The next one is a question. So it's had, and then we have the other auxiliary verb, been. How long had you been something before you decided to go home? Well, I think the only verb that really fits the situation is travel. And here we have to remember there is a spelling point. Travel becomes with double L, traveling. So what is the next one? They woke up and discovered that they had been, well, if they woke up, then obviously the verb is sleep. So let's select that one. Had been sleeping for 12 hours. Now the next one is negative, so immediately we can put in the negative hadn't been, and then it's about a company and it's about profit. If you have the word profit, then the only verb really is make. So the company hadn't been making a profit, but then sales increased. And remember, in make, we drop the E for making. How long had you, and then we can put in the other auxiliary verb, been. So how long had you been? And it's talking about the top of a hill. So in this case, the logical verb is climb. So let's put it here. How long had you been climbing when you reached the top of the hill? Now the next one, had been. She was broke because she had been. Now, in this case, she had no money, so we can imagine a situation with the verb gamble. So let's put that in here. She was broke because she had been gambling. And we drop the E to make the present participle. Had been gambling online. Now the next one is negative, so immediately let's put in hadn't been. And it's talking about breaks. So the best word for breaks is take. So they hadn't been and then taking breaks, so they were exhausted. Next one is a question, so we can put in had at the beginning, and then had he been, and then for ill, the best verb is feel, because you feel ill. So let's put that in here. Had he been feeling ill for a long time before he went to the doctor? So those are all the answers for practice exercise. So that brings us to the end of this video on practice perfect continuous. Brings us to the end of this series. This is step 3. Make sure you've watched step 1 and step 2, and make sure you like if you want to see more videos like this. Click subscribe if you want to see my other video series on other grammar points and other language points, and you can request a lesson in the comments below.